Welcome to episode 113 of the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. I am the co-host Stephen Rothberg. I'm the founder of College Recruiter Job Search Site, where we believe that every student and recent graduate deserves a great career and that it should be easy and inexpensive for employers to hire them. Peter, my co-host, we do indeed have an interesting episode on tap for today.
I knew I could count on you to make a cheap and awful pun. And lo and behold, you did it again.
You don't think that was a punny joke?
I do not. I'm Peter Zollman. I do make a lot of really bad puns.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm Peter Zollman with the AIM Group. We provide business intelligence for recruitment marketplaces and job boards all around the world. We do consulting and conferences. And we haven't met before, but until just pre-show. Linsey Fagan is global talent strategist for Indeed. She's sitting in Austin, but lives at home in northwest suburbs of Chicago, just due north of O'Hare, I guess, or maybe a little west. And she is sitting in Austin today, where Indeed's corporate headquarters are, and she's going to talk to us about their new research. So welcome, Linsey. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you in a few days at Indeed FutureWorks in my favorite city in the world by far, New Orleans.
Thanks so much for having me. I am indeed happy to be here.
Thank you.
Cheap jokes galore. Oh, well, what can I tell you? That's Stephen's trademark. With me a close second. Linsey, tell us a little bit about the new research, and then we'll ask you about being global strategist. We'll ask you about Indeed under the new again CEO, Deco, who's a wonderful guy, and that sort of stuff. Tell us about the research, and I'll shut up.
Yep. I'll kick off with introducing my role. So I've been at Indeed for, coming up on 7 years now. Was at LinkedIn before that and staffing before that. And in my role as a global strategist, we dig in a lot on Indeed data, Glassdoor data, and we conduct a ton of external research because when you think about at Indeed, we help people get jobs, right? Hope everyone knows that. You've seen the commercial, super important mission. But when you think about that, it's really important to understand the job seeker trends that we're seeing, hiring that's going on, and kind of how that's evolving. So in my role, what I do is I pull together all of those wonderful insights and then typically share them with our largest partners from a job volume standpoint, because you think about the huge impact they're making when it comes to helping people get jobs, the data and understanding the job seeker and what makes them tick, what can make them stay long-term at your company. How do you hire for that better fit? Super helpful. So I work with a lot of our larger partners and consulting on what we're seeing, what they're doing, and how we might think about future-proofing our strategy. Also along with that, so we all have slightly different specialties. Mine has been tech talent. For the last 3 years, I've ran point on our tech talent research. And it has been a really fun project because just year over year after year, it's different themes come out of it. And I just think it's a fun space to follow because it is fast changing.
So for people who don't have you on speed dial, who aren't having you reach out and say, hey, here's the report, here's how we can help you, where can they get a copy of the information so that they can kind of update their hiring practices, adjust their salaries, whatever might be creating a problem for them?
Absolutely. So the report's going to be able to be downloaded. If you don't go to Indeed.com/lead, that's where we post a lot of our research and articles for employers on hiring strategies. It will be live there to download. I'll, of course, be sharing it on my social links. So feel free to connect with me and I'll be sharing that as well. But that will be launching in early September. So very soon, in the next 2 weeks.
Awesome.
And what are some of the findings of the reports? Any surprises to you?
Some surprises and some just validating what's happening. So from a tech hiring standpoint, it's not a shocker that we saw, during the pandemic, there was the dip just like everyone else, but there was this massive surge in tech talent hiring well beyond any other space. And we've just seen it crash and not recover. It's starting to recover a little bit, but it's not close to its pre-pandemic levels. I want to say it's still something like 34, 36% below pre-pandemic levels in terms of job volume. So there's been a lot of talk of, was it over hiring and there is an equalization here, or is AI impacting the recovery? And we were able to dig into a little bit of that in our research. When you look at like the roles being hired right now, we are seeing a rapid evolution in, I would say, two different ways. First is we are seeing a lot less demand for entry level talent. Stephen, especially being a college recruiter, like I feel like this report will be fun for you to dig into in terms of like coaching those in tech in what to go to. I think right now is a really pivotal moment where there is a lot of coaching that needs to be done because roles and technologies and responsibilities are evolving very, very quickly. So we're seeing less hiring for entry level talent, and we're seeing a quicker recovery, getting closer to pre-pandemic levels with more senior and experienced talent. Now, one of the questions we asked in our research was an open-ended question: how is Gen AI impacting what it means to be in a tech role at your current organization? And that theme continues there in kind of like the why is we're hearing that AI is able to do a lot of the manual tasks. Shocker, right? You don't need me that. We didn't need them to tell us that. But it's doing a lot of the manual task. But what that means is there's a lot more strategic oversight, less manual execution. So what used to take 5 entry-level roles to do a job is now only taking 2. And it looks a little bit different per organization, per the things. And there's one of the questions we also asked is, how concerned are you about Gen AI or AI in general taking over your job? Generally, the hiring lab, our team of economists did some research across the globe and focusing on US specifically and how they answer the question. Boomers tend to be the most concerned. You see the opposite in tech, where early talent is much more concerned about AI taking their jobs. And I think it's a fairly valid concern since we are seeing a lot of those entry-level roles not be needed as much. Now, I told you to stop me when I go on and on. But I think it'll be interesting to watch where the space goes in just like the next 2 to 5 years, because when you've got less hiring of this entry-level talent, you're not going to be upskilling like newer talent on this strategic oversight. So in college, how are we skilling on that strategic oversight and not just manual execution to really get ready for the workforce of the future?
Yeah, it reminds me of some other industries where employers rely on lateral hires. And like you see that in like law, accounting, for example, not the big firms, but the smaller ones where they were hire people away. And the cost of doing that hiring is so much larger than if you develop that talent from within. But that's just the way some industries work. I wanted to dig in, Linsey, with your the first part of your job title, the global. Are you seeing these same trends globally? Are there certain markets where, no, you know what, actually the early career tech hiring is great in Bulgaria, but it's really weak elsewhere? Or is this kind of an evenly distributed thing?
There's tech trends at a super macro level are similar, but every market's a little bit different. We do see roles switching globally and where hiring is done for them. We do see different pockets of, different countries excel more in one type of tech audience than another. So there's not a perfect way to answer that. There are definitely common threads. I would say India is definitely continuing to see a lot more tech hiring and also a lot more AI. I was just chatting with an employer, yesterday, that was telling me like huge, massive tech company, they're being forced to do a lot of hiring out of the country because the skill sets just don't exist here. And you look at how quickly these technologies are evolving, people just aren't upskilling quickly enough. To your point, like pulling people from another organization, one of the themes that we found is talent this year is so much quieter, like not
Yes.
actively looking than they were last year. So we saw, we over double the responses in respondents in our research. And let me preface the research a little bit of baseline there. So we worked with a research partner, YouGov, who went out and surveyed. This year we did the research in US, Canada, and the UK, and we had super specific quotas on them. Like, I don't need to know about all of tech. There are some roles in tech that are so easy to fill that it's like hiring managers are sitting there thinking like goody gumdrops, I can hire that purple unicorn I've always wanted, and are in fact slowing down the hiring process. But then there's also a lot of these emerging technologies where there is simply not the talent out there. So in our research, what we really wanted to do was make sure our research partner was focusing on that niche, tougher to find talent, because it used to be employers were interested in like, oh, active versus passive, what's that look like? Typically, like, I mean, everyone these days is passively looking in some capacity, but I think employers are a lot more interested in what does this niche talent look like compared to the rest of tech talent. So we had them focus on a lot of these really tough to find technologies, candidates that had experience in those. And so when you think about the audience we surveyed, it's the audience that employers are typically struggling to fill for their technology roles. What we found was more than half. It went from 8 to 20%. 8% last year said, nope, happy in my job, would not take another job. See ya. That number went up to 20% this year, 8 to 20%. Actively looking, that number decreased quite a lot. Not only did it decrease, but we also saw when you look at that decrease in like, well, those who are actually actively looking for a new job right now, primarily entry-level talent. So
Yeah.
what's happening is you've got less openings for this entry-level talent. That's the audience that's actively looking. So you're hearing all these employers saying, I'm being flooded with just shit applicants that don't even come close to qualifying. And
Yeah.
it's this space where there's just, they need a job. And right now the jobs aren't out there. So typically you see lower level talent being less picky in what they're applying to. We call it like a lower match score, as much as we don't want them to and give them red light signals of you are not a fit for this role. We still see a lot of that coming through, and not just on Indeed and Glassdoor, but employers are seeing that across the board. And that's one of the reasons why there's significantly less active talent for the people that they want to hire. And the people that they don't is primarily the active audience. So it's like I'm talking to a lot of employers in terms of like the strategy we had last year. If we're doing that this year, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah. I think this is normal with recessions, right? People like put their heads down. They know that if they leave a job that they've been at for 4 years and they go someplace else, there's often a last in, first out kind of policy, and so they're more likely to be laid off in that new job.
We're running out of time.
I think we've got time for one more quick question if you've got one.
I've got two, and I'm going to make them short, and I'm going to tell Linsey to make your answers short, but I want to ask both. Number one is Indeed has been going through a lot of changes lately. How are things under Deco, who was the returning CEO? He replaced Chris. And the second question, and maybe you want to combine them, is there is a lot of backlash right now against Indeed because of its moves towards staffing, its moves towards clamping down on feeds, its moves to stick it to a lot of its longtime partners. Are you feeling that internally, and do you think that's going to settle down? Tough questions, both of them.
Happy to answer both. So first one, starting with Deco. So Deco is certainly not new to Indeed, right? If anyone's not familiar, we're owned by parent company Recruit, number of companies under there, including Glassdoor, our sister company. So he was acting CEO for a while back, then Chris Himes, and now Deco is back. In terms of changes that we're seeing, all of tech companies are going through these massive changes right now. So it's not entirely surprising. In terms of what we are seeing is, and it's early, like Deco's new to coming in as acting CEO of Indeed specifically. But from my perspective, early initial reaction is Deco is very, very big on how we're leveraging AI to really move us very quickly forward as a business, is very big in ideas and innovating and really, really encouraging that. I'll bring it back to the tech research. One of the things that we dug into was how organizations are using AI right now. And one of the questions that we also asked was, hey, the current company that you're at, did they meet revenue expectations, exceed them, or miss them? We looked at differences between the three. And what you see is organizations who are very actively embracing AI, not just encouraging it, but definitely making sure all the teams and all the businesses are using it in like a ton of different capacities. Those are the ones that are exceeding revenue expectations. And when you go from like missing to hitting to exceeding, there's a direct correlation there. So it is, for me, sitting here and doing the tech research, I think it's so fun to see, because we all talk about AI, but like, until you get in it and use the tools, how is it really helping you be more productive? So it is very, very early on with him being acting CEO of Indeed. But just my initial reaction, I would say that's probably the biggest change, is really ensuring that the entire company embraces it in so many different ways. And when we're at FutureWorks in early September, we've got some fun new things to talk about there that you'll see that showing up there as well.
Linsey.
Sounds good. We're out of time. Stephen, well, I will thank you. I will see you at FutureWorks in just a few days in New Orleans. Great restaurant city, wonderful restaurant city. I reviewed restaurants there. That was the coolest job ever. Stephen, you can go back to your beer gardens and brats and lutefisk and all the Norwegian food and Scandinavian food and Minnesota while we eat marvelous food in New Orleans. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Stephen, for doing the organization and the production and all those things that you do. And I won't see you in New Orleans because you're staying in the tundra where it's cold. Have a good one.
Linsey, thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye-bye.